Okay, so I think we have all of our ECB members, and we also have the three people who are interested in the vacancy. They are all in the waiting room. And I just wanted to touch base with the ECB board members first, and we can certainly bring them in or ask them to wait in the waiting room. I just wanted to touch base with you. Sarah Linda, I know you sent an email out. Thank you very much for doing that. And I apologize. I just have not had a chance to devote any time to the ECB recently with the issues around Tishner Point Drive, and then the ongoing issues that we have just in the day-to-day operations. I want to take a quick second here and introduce Kimberly Burkhard. Kimberly is joining us, and obviously you all know John. John reached out to us, I think it was late last year, and said he wanted to try to scale back a little bit in terms of his duties with all of the different boards and committees that he's doing. And John has done a fantastic, I think for 5 years now, right, John? You've been serving as Planning Board Chair and Environmental Conservation Board Chair, and you've just done a phenomenal job. I know that all of the committees and all of the boards very much appreciate everything that you've done over the years, John. But in an effort to help him scale back just a little bit, we're not going to let him completely go. He's still going to be the Planning Board Secretary and still providing support to a variety of other boards and committees. We had advertised for a vacancy for our Environmental Conservation Board. And although we have some paperwork to still finish up and some processes with the town board to kind of still finish up, Kimberly Burkhard has offered her services and actually even covered her first Ordinance Committee meeting earlier this week. I think it was this week anyway. So Kimberly, thank you for joining. You just want to introduce yourself and say hi to everybody?
Sure. Hello, everyone. I'm Kim, and glad to be here.
And Kimberly has been involved with in the greater Canandaigua community in a variety of different, you want to just touch on that?
Oh, sure.
So that they know.
Most recently, I was the marketing director at Pollinator Gardens, and I've also worked with Friends of Canandaigua and other area organizations.
Okay. So the plan is, and Kimberly, I think you and John have already had a chance to kind of interact and touch base on some things. And I think the general concept idea here is that Kimberly can maybe start to get engaged with the ECB and helping take some of those responsibilities. And the ECB members, I think you'll be interested to know when Sarah Reynolds and I first had a chance to talk to Kimberly, we talked, she has experience with writing articles as well as with website posts and a variety of other things. So I think I'm really hoping it'll be a great fit, I think, for both. So.
Perfect. If you need help with any of that, let me know.
Okay. All right. And then ECB members, how would you like to proceed this evening? I also want to talk to you. We've got Town Board Member Jared Simpson join us this evening. I want to talk to you about that. We do have, I think we may have lost one of our prospective folks that are interested. Should I go ahead and let them in the room and then we can just kind of have some general conversation? If you decide you want to do separate interviews, we can always move them back to the waiting room. Does that sound reasonable to everybody? Yes, I see head shaking. I think a lot of you are on mute. Wait, you guys can unmute yourself, right?
Yes.
Okay, so. Had to make sure for a second. All right, let me bring them into the meeting here.
Well, wait a minute. Before you do that, Doug, are they under the impression that they're being interviewed or that the interviews are going to be separate?
I don't believe that there's been any formal conversation. I think they're actually joining us right now, but I don't think there's been any formal conversation about interviews. And that's where we need to have a kind of a general conversation in terms of kind of the plan here. Let's kind of talk about that for a quick second. I wanted to have a conversation with the Environmental Conservation Board. At the last meeting, we had a brief conversation regarding your interest also in some of the issues relating to the transfer station, and kind of where we go from there. Obviously, you all know that we're in a little bit of a transition with the chair position. We've got a vacancy. We've got a couple of people interested. At the same time, I had a chance to sit down and have a great conversation with Jared Simpson, who's one of our town board members and chairs our environmental committee. And we had a general conversation that we just kind of wanted to have with the Environmental Conservation Board also, about maybe re-looking at the current operation, I guess is what I would say, of the Environmental Conservation Board, and maybe even the opportunity to expand it. One of the things, I guess, one of my thought processes is, and Jared, feel free to jump in, and we definitely need to hear from all the Environmental Conservation Board members, but one of my thoughts is, I know originally, before we had the Environmental Committee, the ECB was really helping with the public awareness and education aspect of the waste and recycling. Obviously, when we had our open house at the transfer station, or at the new highway building, the ECB was really the one that took the lead on that. And kind of a thought process was, my thought in preparation for this conversation was, what if we re-looked at combining the two again? Where we kind of bring the Environmental Conservation Committee under, or as part of the Environmental Conservation Board, and maybe there's some separate teams maybe that fall under the ECB to really dig into specifics, whether that is reviewing plans, or whether that is waste and recycling, or whether that is open space protection and promotion, or natural resource, or maybe even agriculture, whatever the case. Maybe those are specific project areas, with the ECB itself being a much larger umbrella, and still providing the same services, but maybe in a little bit just a different way. And I think that, from conversations that I've had with Jared, even over the last year, I know he has a real interest in project development, and with the ECB reviewing projects before they make their way to the planning board, and being able to provide such a great input for the planning board, which I know the planning board really respects and appreciates. Maybe that's another way for some involvement there also. And since we have some interest from multiple folks, with officially only one vacancy right now, maybe there's a way to expand that. So let me just say that kind of as a nutshell where I wanted to have a conversation with you. Jared, do you want to jump in there?
Yep. So to chime in with that, when Doug mentioned this to me, I was excited about looking at the possibilities to be able to bring these two groups together and really move to everybody's strengths. Over the last year, the Environmental Committee has really been focused on, the waste management and recycling portion of things. COVID really shut us down. Like everybody else, we had projects and other things planned, community outreach and things like that we were going to do. I know some of you are definitely interested in that portion of things, which will become even more important as we look at, down the road, the new transfer station, what that's going to look like, what our relationship with the county will be with that, all of these projects that could be going on related to that. And it's an opportunity to get everybody to work within their niche, things that they really enjoy, and really target certain people in certain areas, and hopefully be more productive. The Environmental Committee has been waning over the last few months with membership, and I don't know if people had been on there for quite a while, and it would be a good natural time to bring in some good blood, get some good ideas, and freshen things up a little bit as well with that.
Let's just pause for a second just to have, and those of you that are joining us this evening, thank you for joining us. I know that there's a variety of guests that we have this evening, and thank you. We just wanted to have you join in, and as we kind of have this general conversation, and we'll get to you each individually here in a second, but I just want to take a moment and give each of the current Environmental Conservation Board members, and especially those of you that, some of you have served on the ECB for many, many years. Just want to give everybody a chance to kind of weigh in. Edith, I wasn't looking directly at you, I promise, but but I just want to give you all a chance to kind of some thoughts. I know this is first time that you've probably even heard this or thought about this, but just kind of wanted to have a conversation. Well, you don't all have to talk at once.
For some, and I'm not one of the more seasoned members, but just for a context sake, what was the genesis of the environmental committee? How did it end up being a separate entity?
So part of that really relates back 3 or 4 years now when we created the town board committees. At that point in time, the town board didn't actually have committees in early 2017. And when the town board created the actual position of town manager, one of the things that we also did, it was almost at the same exact time, was we created a committee structure for the town board that really mirrored the city of Canandaigua's committee structure. Same 4 committees: finance, ordinance, planning, which we also call our planning, public works, and environmental. And at the time we had a town board member who was previously the Environmental Conservation Board's chairperson, who had gotten elected to the town board and decided that they wanted to, devote the time to that, and kind of stepped away from the Environmental Conservation Board. But there was always a little bit of overlap, I felt like, between the Environmental Committee and the Environmental Conservation Board. And really, I think a big piece of that was the interest from a lot of the ECB members in the waste and recycling component that the Environmental Committee was then working on. So the thought process here was maybe just to kind of, hey, maybe we go back to the way it was, and kind of bring those two back together.
Well, I'll speak up here. I think the reason we started talking about it a couple of meetings ago was in the context of a newsletter article, because I made the suggestion, I thought it would be a good subject to look into, kind of a status report on the recycling effort, and also to find out something I've been curious about, which is what's going on with the county and their plans to replace the facility in Flint. So I'm not sure anybody was really looking for the ECB to take a wider role in this. We were really more looking for newsletter article subject matter. And I agree with you, there is some potential overlap. And if there are people on the ECB for whom that's a particular interest, and it helps out with the environmental committee and the direction that's going in, then seems to make some good sense, particularly if we only have 1 opening on the board and we have 3 interested people, and some of them might like to, move into that role. That sounds good.
I could add that the ECB has always been focused on public education, and that was certainly recycling and waste management is an interest for most of us who are on that board. There are many other things, of course. So, when the environmental committee seemed to be taking the lead role in that, I think we kind of backed off, except we were still looking at trash pickup as a project. We were still looking at a number of things. So I think, the interest and some of the expertise is certainly there. I think Gary has an interest, particularly in the plastics recycling and things like that, which would be a very good thing for us to focus on education for our public in, since that's a problem.
And that brings a good blending of the two, because one of the big focuses with the environmental committee has been the Facebook page and outreach. So I think in that regard, combining those two together could be a good opportunity, to put out those educational publications, the educational newsletters, any of that, so people can have that.
Mm-hmm.
One of the other things that I just kind of had thought about too is really with the transition with Kimberly now too, there might be additional opportunity to really promote, as you were talking about, Edith, some of the things that you originally done, the public awareness education aspect of that. And so And Jared, I know that we had a company that we were working with, but maybe as it gets to the point now where I think you guys are really kind of gearing towards implementation of some of those things,
Yeah.
maybe a bigger entity as the ECB expanded might be able to have a little bit broader reach too.
Yeah, it would be nice to have people with the experience locally to be able to do that, because I know that in the meetings that I've had and some of the returns that we've gotten from the company out of California, it hasn't been great all the time, and it's been kind of hit and miss. But to have people ourselves to be able to do that would be good, with the experience with that.
Pat or Rocky, either one of you want to jump in as current ECB members?
Well, I'm really new, as everyone knows, so I really don't know much about how it ran before, but it does make sense to, combine everything, in my opinion, to get everyone on the same page. So, but that's just what I was thinking.
Yeah, I mean, we've been collaborating too. I guess for a while we had a couple members represented on the environmental committee as well that would provide us updates from the general meetings and whatnot. So I don't think like that would be that abnormal of a step to kind of combine resources. And my understanding too is the committee had spent a lot of time working with the city on various projects as well, or that had kind of, that collaboration, I guess, was reserved more so for the committee.
As far if you're, because I've only been, it's been a little over a year for me. If it's for, we had the big collaboration recently, it's the recycling totes, the compost bins, that was city and county. But yeah.
I think if we can combine into some aspects, especially now if we're trying to do community education with people not being able to meet in person, or actually running a live program or having a live speaker. We had brought up the possibility of webinars, maybe that someone in our group or someone who was connected to a certain topic would be willing to do for us as a way to reach out to the community. Combined efforts would definitely be a plus in that aspect.
So if it's, I certainly don't anticipate that we'll be able to hash out all the details tonight, but if it's generally something that you think we should continue to explore, Jared and I can work together in getting some logistics, and we can certainly shoot it back to you. And obviously any changes to the town code would need to be done by the town board. So we'd work on that. I want to bring up one more concept, and Jared and I had a conversation too about, even the structure of it, especially since there is some additional interest in the ECB. And I am working with one of the local not-for-profits in Canandaigua recently. One of the things that I discovered with their board is they give some flexibility to the board to expand, to either grow or contract, depending on the programs and stuff that they're working on. So another concept here would also be that, and Jared, obviously we'd have to talk to the town board about this, but maybe there is the town board, like currently, would determine who the chair is. And maybe the town code says something like the ECB shall meet, monthly and have a board of not less than 5 people, but giving the ECB itself flexibility to expand or contract depending on the projects that you have going on, so that if you've got some more flexibility. So just kind of wanted to introduce that concept also. Let's see if there were any thoughts. A lot more details to flush out, obviously, on that. But
well, one other thing we might want to keep in mind in this whole consideration is our lack of a chairman. Maybe that could be addressed somehow or other in the course of this consolidation, if that comes about. And I know I think Caitlin over at the Highway Department does a lot of staff work in connection with the recycling program, right?
Yes.
And she's very capable. Maybe between her and Kimberly, we could come up with an arrangement in which some of the administrative work that has in the past fallen to the chairman might be taken on by a staff person, which in turn would, I think, hopefully make it more likely that somebody would be willing to take the role of chairman.
I volunteer, Jared.
So we'll just add it to the Zoom list. I'm in.
That's right. Sarah Linda, I agree 100% with you. And that was kind of what I was also thinking, specifically with regard to Kim, that I think that we kind of had talked about some additional communication type things. And I know Jared has in the past done some communication things for the environmental committee. I know that Caitlin is trying. Caitlin, like all of us, are wearing many hats and sometimes stretched a little thin. But if it's able to be consolidated more, I think specifically with the ECB and maybe Kim providing that support, I think that would probably help and make things actually go quite a bit smoother.
Are there environmental committee members currently who are quite active and would want to be part of this bigger group, or not really?
I think so. Right now, we've lost a few. Right, the most active one is Susan Shaw. She's been the one who's been around the most. We've like I said, we've lost a few over the last 6 months who just felt their time. It's time to move on to other things. So a lot of times it's me and Caitlin staring at each other. We don't have to worry about mics or anything like that because they're just on the whole time. So it's really easy.
And ECB members, correct me if I'm wrong, but I know in the past sometimes that there's some challenges, whether it's vacation or different things going on, in even keeping a quorum, so maybe an expanded role with some different rules of procedure might give some greater flexibility for the ECB also.
Mhm.
So, okay. We can certainly work on that. Jared, is there anything else you want to add to that? Maybe you and I can work on that, especially if we can get Tishner Point behind us. So
yeah, you said Tishner Point. The ECB is going to take over Tishner Point.
Yeah, that would be great. Yes.
I'm out. I gotta go.
Resignations here.
Yeah, I gotta go. Those of you who are interested, run now while you can. Now I lost my train of thought. I think this, we do need to hash out what it would look like, how it would run, how it would operate. But I think, like everybody shared, it would give the opportunity again, of maybe having a larger group, certain nights, certain meetings that, people have a sub role or a sub, like almost like a specialty within the board that they're focusing on. And it, I'm willing to do it. I'm willing to do whatever I can to help facilitate it, help make it work, help the two groups come together, and keep doing the great things that ECB is doing, and especially now with things coming down the road. We don't know what the next few years. I've got a plan in front of me that has the dates 2021 through 2025 on it. So a lot of things are going to be happening over the next few years with waste and recycling and everything else. So I think now is a good time to make that natural transition.
Awesome. So we have, John's probably going to shoot me. John spends this time putting together this agenda, and I'm jumping all over the place here with this agenda. Sorry, John. I got it on my other screen. I got two screens in front of me. I got it on my left screen. I'm watching it. We'll get back to it here in just a quick second. But why don't we just take a moment? I know we have 3 guests join us this evening. Why don't we just give a chance for everybody to kind of introduce themselves, and we'll just keep, just for a quick introduction, just so we can get to know you a little bit, and then we'll have ongoing conversations, it sounds like, based on the discussion that we just had. So how about Erica? You happen to just be the first one on the left-hand side of my screen. How about you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. So my name is Erica. I live actually in Naples, but I'm in Canandaigua quite a lot. I just have an interest in the board and what you guys are doing and how you're working. I'm also a student at ESF.
welcome. Thank you. Thank you very much for joining us. Leaf, well, let me come to you. You want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, hello. I know some of you, most of you I'm not acquainted with. Thank you for inviting me to sit in. I am interested in what the board is undertaking. And of course, you know, behind all of that is my interest in Canandaigua's future with regards to development, open spaces, view sheds, things of that nature. I grew up in Bloomfield. I've been a resident of Canandaigua now for 22 years, I think. Just before that, I was over in, over in Gorham. While I was in Bloomfield, I was involved up to my eyeballs with the founding and the formation of Boughton Park, which is a 330-acre forever wild space. So I have a bit of familiarity with land acquisition and land use. Come from a long line of farmers and people who love the outdoors. So I guess that's in a nutshell, that's the thumbnail of Leaf. But if there's anything I can help with, and there's any way I can help, you know, keep our community's quality right up to standard, then I'm all for being involved.
Awesome. Well, thank you. Thanks for joining us. And let's also introduce Leaf as our new town historian also. So I believe that becomes official next Monday. So so Leaf, thank you for taking that role on also.
You outed me. I was just gonna hide that one, Doug, but that's okay. Thank you. Yes. And I especially look forward to that role.
Awesome. I figured Sarah Linda was going to out you anyway by the time we got back around to that. So.
I'm thinking about it.
Let's see, Darren, did I lose? Oh, there's Rocky. My screen just shifted. Sorry, I didn't know what happened. I was like, where everybody is. Darren, thanks for joining us. I believe, Rocky, do you want to introduce Darren? I believe you were the one that originally told us about Darren's possible.
So I've known Darren for a while. I don't know if she wants to speak to her qualifications, but I've known her since high school. We went to college and law school together. She's an environmental scientist and a lawyer and has worked around the city, working on various environmental projects and doing research in something. She'll have to refresh my memory on what her research was in. But yeah, I don't know if Darren wants to fill in the cracks on that.
Thank you, Rocky. So I have a bachelor's degree in environmental science, and I focus on water quality and specifically the impact of water treatment plants. So I'm very interested in water quality. Let's see, I interned with the Canandaigua Lake Watershed Association and council, both kind of, and with Kevin Alvani. I know some of you probably know him, and I really enjoyed that experience. And then I went to law school, and here I am.
Awesome. Well, thank you. Thank you very much for joining us. You know, I don't know about you, Jared, but I'm sitting there. We got two attorneys, both experienced in seeker. I'm thinking 4351 Tishner Point Drive. I'm like a one-track mind here trying to get that.
Everyone loves seeker. Yes.
Yeah, motion carries.
I'm at a soft load seeker.
Oh my goodness gracious. Well, thank you. Thank you all for joining us this evening.
Yes.
Let's I know that there's another section here in the agenda, but ECB members, did you have any questions for any of the three of them? I know this isn't quote unquote a normal formal interview, but especially given in light of if we might be making some changes and we may have more than the one vacancy, perhaps we want to keep it a little bit more fluid. But does anybody have any questions or comments or thoughts? Or just give you a second here. No? Okay. If not, I guess what we should do is leave Darren and Erica. If you'd like to continue to join us this evening, love to have you join us. We're going to go through the rest of the agenda. That way you get a little bit idea of what the ECB is about. And then we can continue the conversation to be continued at a later date. How's that? Does that work for everybody? So, okay. Okay. And I have to apologize. I jumped right in, did not even do the Pledge of Allegiance, which is on the second thing on the agenda here. So my apologies about that. I do have a flag up on my screen here that I can share. We could go back and catch that. So how about if we do that? Mr. Town Board Member, would you like to lead us in the
Sure.
Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance
Pledge
to the
allegiance
flag
to the flag of the United States of America,
and to the republic
to the republic for which it stands,
Stands
one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
It's the old saying, better late than never. At least we got that part done. Okay. Introduction of guests. I think we've already covered that. So we'll jump here to organizational meeting items. I guess given in light of the conversation that we just had, fix my earpiece there for a second. Given in light of the conversation that we just had, if it is okay with the rest of the ECB, maybe we hold on those items for right now until we can look at some logistics and the possible changes that we might want to be making relative to the rules and the organizational aspects. I guess the one question I would have, I indirectly heard Jared volunteer to lead the ECB. If there's no objection to that, I'd like to be able to put that forward to the town board, if as long as that's okay with everybody.
It would be super.
You know, truthfully, the thing that I love about that too is I mentioned, you know, Jared definitely has a passion for reviewing projects, but it also gives the ECB a direct link back to the town board too, with some of the things going on in a direct conduit of information that I think is very helpful. You know, that's how we a lot of times had originally set up our boards and committees. So there was a direct link back to the town board with the various things going on. And I think that would, I think it would be beneficial, especially if
Yes.
some things really start expanding waste and recycling, as well as a variety of other things. So.
Just go easy on me, everybody.
We can
Welcome,
do that.
welcome.
We can
Thank
do
you.
that.
Give me a week, give me a meeting or two, and then you can have at it.
So,
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, asterisk, would you like to take over the meeting at this point?
Oh my goodness, killing me.
If you want, I'll finish up. It's up to you.
You know what? Why not? I would do the same thing to my kids, so I'll take it over. You're just
Awesome.
chirping my ear if I miss something. All right, so we're on to E, approval of the minutes, February 4th, 2021. Can I have a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Edith, so move, yeah. Or second, whichever.
Okay, any discussion on the minutes?
No.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
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 All right, that motion carries. Privilege of the floor? I think we've had enough of that. enough random talking. So unless anybody has anything to bring up for privilege of the floor. Oh, is that John played? Is John playing music? Is that, I hear music.
I hear music too.
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay, so we're gonna go on to item G, report from the development office. So Doug has a letter from Nancy Gastel about the energy exchange.
Yeah, so we forward that on. Actually, let me, before we get speaking of the development office, I just also wanted to share with you all that we did do our first round of interviews for town planner this week. We've got two, I think, very qualified individuals who are interested in the position of town planner. They both are currently well, one is immediately past, was a county planner, and the other is currently a county planner. So very helpful. We've got two very qualified applicants that hopefully before too long we can finish up that process and get some support there. The email from Nancy Gastel and the energy exchange. I don't know if you had a chance to read that. You know, she, I think, might have an interest, and we kind of talked about a variety of different things that maybe the ECB could look at. I think she has an interest in perhaps speaking to the ECB at some point in the future relative to that, and maybe even you know, maybe working on, and maybe that fits right into the whole idea that we talked about, maybe expanding the ECB and having some project teams, that sort of thing. But I don't really have a lot more information other than that, but I know that there's an interest at least in exploring that. And I think that there's also, you know, we had talked in the past about things like community choice aggregation when we talk about energy. So I think that there's a variety of things, truthfully, that could be explored that maybe the ECB would consider a project team to look at some of those types of things and have some conversation. I know that it's something that I've had conversations with Jody Kaufman also. So I know that there's a variety of people in our community that are interested in exploring that more. So I'll just kind of leave it at that.
Okay, so next we have a referral from the town board about the Middle Cheshire Road Hospital Services Corridor Active Transportation Plan. This is where I'm going to need some help. I don't have the links to any of these. I don't know if they're up there or where they would be for this.
No problem. I think John may have actually sent this out. They are on the town website. And just let me show you guys what I usually do, just as my cheat here. I usually just go up to the search bar when I'm looking for something and type it in, and usually I can find it here. Middle Cheshire Road Transportation Plan. So here is the revised draft study. Just want to make sure I was looking at the right thing. Yeah. And then the study here. So one of the things that has come up relative to this, you know, just kind of as a quick reminder, I think a number of you were actually on the presentation that Bergman Associates did. We had applied for a grant through the Genesee Transportation Council, Genesee Planning Transportation Council, GTC. And this was a collaboration between the city of Canandaigua and the town of Canandaigua. And it was looking at Middle Cheshire Road as well as the area around the hospital. That's why it's called the Healthcare Services Corridor Active Transportation Plan for that north side of 5 and 20 along Middle Cheshire Road. And the study really encompassed the entire stretch. It included the area around the hospital from a walkability, active transportation, included taking a look at Middle Cheshire Road. And it really built off of the study that was done of County Road 16 a few years ago, in which one of the findings of the study was, hey, there's not a whole lot of room to do something different along County Road 16. The town should also consider looking at Middle Cheshire Road to see what other components could be included for active transportation and users of all abilities along Middle Cheshire Road, since there is limited space. My internet looks like it's a little bit slow at the moment, since there's limited space along County Road 16. So you can see it did include the whole corridor all the way down to Wells Curtis Road, including Wells Curtis Road. There were a variety of key findings, recommendations relative to things like visibility of intersections, some crosswalks. I think in one particular case near Lakewood Meadows, they even suggested a four-way stop associated with that. These are what I would call concepts. If the town and or city, either one, were really to pursue implementing these need additional look. But that follows the standard process of what I would say for these GTC grants. These are called UPWP grants, or Uniform Project Work Planning grants. And this is these first sections, or these first look is exactly what it is. It's a concept. Hey, here's some ideas on how this might work. And then what you have to do is then you have to get into a little bit deeper dive on these. And there's some specific other grants that you can apply for once you have these planning grants. The study's completed, then there's some other details that you have to work out. And like, for instance, I'll give you another example. In this document, there's reference to a trail near the city's water tanks connecting County Road 16 to Middle Cheshire Road. And I know it's come up repeatedly before. It's definitely something that it needs additional look and additional discussion. If we were to go down that road, there's also some concerns relative to safety that the two water superintendents have shared with me. If we were to do something like that, that's not to say it can't be mitigated. I think you can mitigate almost anything, right? But you've got to be able to factor all that in and plan for all of that. So one of the things that we're planning to do to close out this grant, and that's really what this is about at this time. GTC has already approved this this study. We don't plan to officially adopt this study, bringing this to the town board. It crosses jurisdictions, and there's some things in it that may be able to be done, and there's some other things that probably won't be able to be done in the study. So what we're going to do is we're going to acknowledge it so that we can close out the grant. That's one of the things GTC is asking us to do. They just need to be able to close out the grant at this point. So there is a public hearing scheduled for March 15th on the study. Certainly anyone can weigh in and provide any information they'd like, and there's certainly some great points to it. But I think there's also some questions relative to some of it. So with that, I'll kind of turn back over to you, Jared, and help try to answer any questions that anybody might have. So,
all right, any discussion or any questions on the plan?
Well, I did look at the presentation by Bergman. I thought it was a great presentation. It's only about maybe 40 minutes, 30 or 40 minutes, and it's a lot easier than reading the report. Mm-hmm. And the parts of it that I particularly appreciated having, that's a bike route that I use a fair amount, and this certainly would make what's already a nice bike route, but this would be way better. And the trail idea going up from the water plant to the towers at what do you call them? The water storage facility at the top of the hill and then down to Middle Cheshire Road, I think would be wonderful, not only for bikers, but also for walkers. It would be one of the nicest enhancements to our trail system that we could come up with. So I would really love to see that implemented as a top priority in moving ahead with some of this stuff.
Okay, thank you.
I had a question about I was reading the report last week, and they talked about the different kinds of accidents versus like deer hits versus car accidents that happen on Middle Cheshire and the routes by the hospital. And I was just wondering if there was a way, because the way it was worded, it made it seem like that there were more automobile accidents on Middle Cheshire than there were. It said that the majority of the accidents that took place were with the cars and not deer, but most of those accidents were by the hospital and not by Middle Cheshire. And Middle Cheshire actually had more deer accidents than automobile accidents. So I don't know if there was a way to clarify and show that on Middle Cheshire specifically, deer accidents were the #1 issue versus car accidents. That was just one thing I read that was a little confusing to me.
Yeah, do they clarify? I don't think they clarify any of that, do they?
They show where the accidents take place, but then they just list it as like a pie chart as like which one's most prevalent, and it seemed a little misleading to me to have like say it's like the Middle Cheshire area and say the #1 issue was car accidents when on Middle Cheshire itself it was deer accidents.
Yeah, making it seem worse than it is.
Yeah, that Middle Cheshire Road, and this, I'm going to sound like a one-track mind, but we keep working on this project at Tishner Point, and we're recently I was looking at traffic data for County Road 16 versus Middle Cheshire Road. And, there's been, it looks like 2 fatalities on Middle Cheshire Road. There's been a variety of serious accidents on Middle Cheshire Road. Relatively, in comparison, there's been no fatalities on County Road 16. And the traffic volume of Middle Cheshire Road is almost 3 times that of County Road 16. So Middle Cheshire Road is definitely getting used more, but and I think this is the shot that you're talking about, Rocky, this screen here, where you know, they're showing all of these different accident points, but you're absolutely right. What it's 39%, it looks like, are with deer, 47% are with a motor vehicle, and then a variety of other, you know, so almost half of the accidents is a accident with a deer.
Okay, anybody else have any comments on that? All right, next item. I do not see any referrals from the CIC. There is one from the Ordinance Committee. Planning issues related to Fallbrook Park, Sandy Bottom Drive, Poplar Beach.
So this is a follow-up, really. I did share with Gary Davis, who chairs our Ordinance Committee, that there was an interest, and we had a little bit of discussion at the last meeting relative to looking at zoning and or something, whether it's an RLD East or looking at some sort of specifics for that area, Poplar Beach, Sandy Beach, you know, those types of things with those smaller lots. He said to me that they're very interested in having additional conversations with the ECB about that, whether it's a separate additional meeting in the month of March or possibly their April meeting. They meet the first Monday of every month. But I think that they were also leaning towards maybe having a second meeting to discuss some of that, and or the ECB's meeting. But, you know, they kind of went back to, and all the Ordinance Committee members are very interested in talking to the ECB members about that and the thoughts and the ideas surrounding that. So I don't know if you would like to go to the Ordinance Committee, or one or two of you maybe that are interested in that, attend the Ordinance Committee meeting, or if you'd prefer to set something up where the Ordinance Committee you know, meets jointly with you. We just need some direction so we can help facilitate to make that happen. But they're very interested in having the conversation.
So this would just be the preliminary discussion on that. If there's anybody who has an interest who wants to step up and do it, I mean, otherwise we could invite a couple of them into ours to present what their thoughts are and share that with us.
Yeah,
anybody have any thoughts either way?
I mean, I know we have that ability to have that second meeting in the month. So, I mean, that was the third week of March. If we could have a little joint meeting, I guess, to discuss it, probably, if that would work with everybody.
How many members are there on the Ordinance Committee?
I believe 5. I believe it's either 4 or 5, I think.
When do they typically meet, the Ordinance Committee? Do they have like a schedule like we do?
They do. They meet the first Monday of each month at 9 a.m. So their next meeting officially would be April the 5th at 9 a.m.
9 a.m.
But I think they were, I really think they liked the idea of maybe a special meeting specifically to have this conversation. We just need to give enough notice.
I know they do have a lot that they're taking on right now in their regular meetings. So that might be a good idea to have a separate one.
And this would be focused mainly on just what Sarah Lynn had brought up, I believe, with just the lot coverages in that area and creating a special, I guess, zone for it.
I think the other thing that came up, and I know we talked about this last month also, and it's something that they're also still trying to grasp and understand, is the concept of whether or not there should be some offset for if someone were to use, for instance, pervious pavers instead of impervious pavers, and whether or not there should be some credit for lot coverage. I know that we've kind of had some general conversations over the years about that, but it's an issue that they're very interested in talking about. So I think that they thought from that conversation I had with them, I think what they were thinking is, hey, if the ECB is interested in looking at lot coverage anyway, we're interested in looking at this whole situation with pervious. The two topics definitely go together. Maybe we can have a broad conversation.
Mhm.
Well, why don't we suggest a meeting in about 2 weeks, sometime during the third week of the month. So it's halfway between this one and our next meeting, and the same for them.
So sometime the week of the 15th.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you want me to reach out to them? Do you want me to reach out to Gary and see what they have? I can do that
That'd be great.
and see what would be a good time for them to meet. And invite them to our house for that.
Yeah, sounds good.
Okay.
I think it, in terms of timing, probably a late afternoon meeting would work. I think some of our members are going to have a hard time meeting during the day.
Yeah.
So 4:30 or 5 would probably be a good time.
Yeah, that's why I think bringing them in over to our schedule will work for a lot more of us. Okay, so I will let you guys know what I find out from Gary, and I'll share that so we can get that out there. I'll try to stick to the same. I'll try to stick to Thursday, just because that's what typically when they are, if that works for them, if that works for you guys.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes, yes.
All right.
So that'd be the 18th.
18th.
Yep. All right. So moving on, reviews from the PRC. It looks like we have two, and Sarah Linda and Justin are listed on those. So the first one is regarding 4629 County Road 16.
Yeah, I'd be glad to walk you through this one. And I don't know if you can, let's look at the site plan. And actually, could you call up the photographs, which are on the board site? There's a series of photographs there, and we can just kind of have a quick look at what the existing conditions are. Just start with photo 1 there. Okay, this building is along Westlake Road, just opposite the intersection with Wells Curtis Road. It is a historic site, or local historic site anyway. It was built around 1915 as a chapel, a Roman Catholic chapel. It was a sort of subsidiary of St. Mary's, and it was built for people who were lake dwellers who weren't able to make it into Mass on Sunday morning, but they could make it down to the hill above Menteith Point. So some people arrived by road, and some people arrived by boat. There's stairs going down to the lake from the building. You can see on the right-hand side, that is an addition. The concrete block portion of the building closest to the road is the original chapel. And this was only a chapel for about 30 years. It closed later in the 1930s, actually more like 20 years, and was converted to a single family home. And then the portion of the house that you see on the right is a fairly large addition that was made in the early years. Or I'm not sure when, sometime in the middle 20th century, a big addition was put on the back. So the current owners have a redevelopment plan which involves keeping everything that's there now, but adding to it. And so I'll go through the draft referral report. And I don't know if you want to pull that up as I go through. Well, yeah, let's look at the rest of the pictures too. This is looking at it from the south looking north. So you can see the portion on the left is the original building. Portion on the right, which is 2 stories, is the bigger addition. There's a large deck around it. So where the photographer is standing here is pretty much where the new addition is going to be. And go to the next picture. This is from the deck looking down toward the lake. So it's a wooded site and it's quite sloped down about as far as you can see here. And then you can just see the beginning of a stairway that goes down to the lakefront. It gets even steeper at that point. So it's a very steep slope from there down. And it's I don't know what the percentage is. The drawings didn't have the percentage, but it's a moderately steep slope. And the area in the kind of center left here that is open is where the existing septic system is. And they propose to upgrade the septic system, but in the same location. So that will continue to be the septic area. The trees that are in here, most of the trees that you see here will stay. But the trees that are roughly from the eastern edge of the existing building up to the road are pretty much all going to go. Go to the next slide, the next photo. This is looking back up toward the house from near where you start to go in the stairs down to the lake. So it's quite a wooded site and a good variety of different hardwood trees here. They have taken out already quite a number of the small trees that kind of made it more dense. And then I believe there's one more picture. Yeah, this is the beginning of the stair going down to the lake. So you can see it's quite densely wooded on the steep slope adjacent to the lake. So let's go to the site plan. This is the existing site plan showing the building and the addition, and there is a gravel drive coming down to that sort of lower level, and there also is a parking area immediately off of Westlake Road, which is where what they usually use for parking their cars. So you can kind of, actually this makes it look as if it's a continuous slope rather than one slope and then getting even steeper by the steps. So I guess maybe that's it. This is the proposed site plan. You can see the location of the new septic system, and the new garage is, you can see where it says driveway courtyard area. That's the only portion that's going to be new pavement, and the garage part of the building is immediately off of that. So there will be there'll be some parking area close to the road and driveway close to the road. But one of the things that I think is a good point about it is that it has a relatively small amount of driveway and therefore less, hardscape and impervious surface than there otherwise might be. So let me go through the referral report here. The application is for an addition to an existing home. No variances are required. The property is identified as a historic site on the open space map number 12. Former Our Lady of Lebanon Chapel, 1915, converted to a single family home about 1945. And by the way, the owners have given permission for the local history team to document the existing building prior to the alterations. So that actually took place last September. The property is a steep slope area, particularly the section adjacent to the lake. The proposed addition is in the flattest portion of the site. The land does get a little bit less steep as you come up close to the road. No work is proposed at the stairs leading to the lake or to the steep bank. Clearing of existing trees is proposed in the immediate area of the addition and throughout the uppermost part of the site. A schedule of replacement trees and shrubs is planned. That is on page 3 of the site plan, but unfortunately you can't read it. I think that needs to be addressed before the planning board reviews it. The existing trees are a combination of mid-sized evergreen and deciduous trees. A new and more compact septic system will be built in the same location as the existing. And the garage and driveway are relatively close to the road with a limited amount of pavement parking area. And there also is a proposed rain garden that appears to be designed to address the runoff from the driveway itself. Environmental concerns, the size of the addition requires the removal of a significant number of trees, although the applicants plan to replace them with new plantings. A legible landscape schedule should be submitted for planning board review. While the proposed addition is being placed on the most level part of the site, care is required to avoid erosion during and after construction. And the site plan indicates a rain garden below the new driveway area, but does not address roof drainage from the existing house and the addition. With the substantial increase in the building coverage, the much narrower side yard on the south side, and the prospect of roadway drainage onto the property, more erosion control measures around and below the house would be wise. So the draft recommendation, ECB is pleased that the applicants are retaining the existing historic structure and incorporating it into their project, and that the garage is placed close to the road, minimizing driveway pavement. The addition is substantial and requires more loss of existing trees than we like to see, but the proposed landscaping appears to be appropriate. We recommend more attention to erosion control measures around and below the house, including permeable pavement, to promote infiltration and minimize runoff and erosion. We also suggest that additional details be submitted concerning drainage and landscaping for planning board review.
Okay, anybody have any comments or questions on that? Thank you, Sarah Linda.
I'm interested in what their smaller septic system is. Is this something like peat moss modules or something that's allowing them to do something smaller?
I have a theory about what this is, and based on personal experience, because Scott Grove, who is the same engineer that's working on this, installed a very similar system like this on a property that belongs to my family. It's a system called Presby.
Oh yes, Presby system. Yeah, I'm familiar with those. Yeah,
you're able to put the leach lines much closer together than otherwise, and
yeah, I know what the Presby systems are like. I was just interested, you know, that there's a smaller system being put in. There are several different systems that seem to work well, and that's one. So that's good to know.
I mean, it's not smaller from the point of view of capacity, it's bigger, but it's smaller.
Yes, I understand that. It's just, it's taking up less physical space on the lot. So that's why I was curious.
Now, is that what's shown on page 4?
Oh, up in the upper right there is
of the site plan.
The landscape plan that you can't read. I mean, it must have been a PDF that got pasted in there and they didn't notice that the resolution was no good.
Okay.
So they got to fix that. But it does look like they have given some attention to, you know, a detailed landscape plan that, for one thing, it provides more screening from the road, which I can understand. The existing building is quite close to the road, and I think they would like to have a little bit more privacy from the road itself. So there are quite a few evergreens up there in front. And
okay, anybody else have any questions or thoughts on the project?
Just for the benefit of Kimberly, our procedure on this usually has been Justin and I have written these drafts, and as a result of the discussion, if there are any changes to those, we can make revisions and then we'll send them to the secretary to incorporate into the minutes.
Perfect, thank you.
Sounds good.
So who is doing it this time? Is this John's last one or Kimberly's first one?
John's last one.
John's last. Okay, then John, I will make a couple of corrections on this one and send it to you.
Okay, thank you.
All right, great. Thanks, Sarah Linda.
Do you want to, just because it's an official recommendation, do a vote just so that it's on record?
All right, so regarding 4629 County Road 16, can I have a motion to approve the recommendations?
So move.
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. So the suggestions for 4629 County Road 16 have been approved. The next one on the docket is 4210 County Road 16. So I'm not sure, Justin, do you have that one, or Sarah Linda, do you have information on that
No, I
one?
could pop in here and do this one.
Okay.
So this is just if you got the site plan available. So the reason we are reviewing this one is it popped up. They're requesting a lot coverage area variance. This is due to the existing lot coverage getting bumped up from 22% roughly up to 27%, when the maximum allowed is 25%. There's also another, I guess, variance request that I noted on the site plan that just the southern boundary is a little tight after they would put in the new driveway there. So that would need a variance because it's supposed to be a 10-foot spacing there, and it's going to be at some points down at about 2.5 feet. The other, I guess, key points that got brought up in it were that looking through, I guess it was a seeker form, I noticed that it also identified it being near an archaeological site, according to SHPO, and couldn't really find much on that. But I think Sarah Linda made the point that it may be involved with, I believe, what'd you say, Tishner Point down the way, or some other aspect in the area, but nothing that really came up, any red flags or anything. I guess the environmental concern here is, like we've talked on a couple other ones, is the idea of exceeding the allotted lot coverage, and the question of trying to maintain that 25% and avoiding going over it when we can. And the main concern here was the, I guess, removal and relocation of the driveway. Where it exists now, if we have the site plan up. Right now it's to the north, coming in off of County Road 16, and the proposal now is to remove that completely. One more up. Yeah, so that's where it lies currently. And so they want to move it to the south and expand it quite considerably. And that's the main driver for the request for the variance. A lot of the other stuff, there's some walls in the back, landscaping wise, that they're kind of trying to fit it in because it was areas that were already, I guess, developed. And that's where the expansion, not only the driveway, but the house and everything is going. So that kind of offset. But the main focus for this was more or less the increase in the driveway. The proposed driveway will have permeable pavers, which is great. We like to see that to help with infiltration, and a really well thought out and engineered infiltration system that they have going through the site. That's, I think if you go down a page or two, that's there more or less to collect all the surface water runoff coming from the back there, as well as the house itself. And there's a couple infiltration tanks set up in the middle of the property that would flow over to the stormwater runoff as you get to the road. So that was, and then with that, the revised drainage plan for the site, including the swales, infiltration, downspouts to the house. I mean, it's being worked up pretty well, the entire area, to achieve that with the addition of these swales and more or less concentrating all of the surface water runoff into one collection point and one point. And going through it, I noticed that it was more or less set up for a 25-year storm event. And I don't know if, I didn't have a chance to check if that's the code or what we go by now. But the one concern I did have is just with the frequency of more major storm events and whatnot, especially something like this where it's well thought out, well engineered, but all of that water is going to one point, it's going to overwhelm it. On top of that, with even having the permeable pavers and whatnot, at a certain point, they won't be able to do their job during an event like that. So you'll end up having these 2 points on this particular property where, you know, it'll be rolling into the road there and might cause a hazard because it's focused into 2 areas. So I just wanted to bring up that point. And then in addition to relocating the drive itself, there's a series, 3 trees, 3 mature trees. A couple of them are rather large. It looks like a large spruce. Some of the photos I saw from Google that would be removed. And then I can't quite tell what the other 2 were, but you know, some of the net gains you would be getting from the permeable pavers would be lost because you're removing these mature trees that are really assisting with doing that job currently, as well as, you know, in the removal, you'll be losing the roots and whatnot too in the area over the years. So I guess to get on to the recommendations, you know, the ECB always appreciates when they can do the permeable pavers. Just having that awareness, I guess, shows us an understanding that they understand where they are by the lake and whatnot, and it's not a sensitive area. But again, because they're removing these mature trees to accomplish that, kind of takes away some of the net gains you'd be seeing there. And basically, in removing those, I know they're doing some landscaping and there's some vegetation being proposed for around the house, but just, you know, we would propose that they'd add in some more to compensate for the tree loss that's occurring there. And one of the other things I noted on there was just that they are going to be using dark sky compliant lighting, which is great for them to do being on the lake. But I guess the big thing would be that, you know, as we have done in the past, the ECP doesn't support, you know, the lot coverage variances when they're going to go over the threshold or the maximum of 25%. If we can avoid it, you know, we feel like the town and the planning board, you know, should stick to that, especially in instances where it seems certain things can be engineered or developed a different way to avoid that pretty easily. But again, you know, we're happy that they're thinking about doing stuff with the infiltration because of their proximity to lakes. So that's great. Yeah, and I think that's the gist of it. I don't know if anybody else had any other input to it.
Justin, if you go back to the board site, there is a document there that has some images of it. I took some photographs of it the other day that sort of inform some of the points that Justin was making in terms. And also, let's see, where's the thing? Yeah, the last one. It also shows the portion of the site which is on the lake side of the road. They are not proposing any changes to that, but anyway, here they are from the front. That's the lakefront part, and whoops, we'll keep going down. That's looking south. You can see there's a fairly large building down there.
And I think there was one photo that showed all the hardscaping that was done down
right. Yeah, go down to the bottom photo. That's looking up. There's one more. Yeah, that's looking north. So you can see the building with the shed roof. And then there is a completely paved surface down at the top of their wall. And then there's just some very minimal planting beds that are terraced going up to the retaining wall that takes you up to the top of the hill. So there's, I mean, if you were to just look at the lakefront portion of this thing, the lot coverage has got to be, you know, somewhere in the neighborhood of 60 or 70%, or maybe even more than that. I mean, it would be hard to imagine another parcel or another piece of lakefront with a higher lot coverage than this. That's not to say it violates the law, because since the part on the lakeside is part of the same parcel as the part on the rest, on the uphill side, and they lump them all together when doing the lot coverage calculation. So it's not in violation, but it is an area where if they were looking to reduce their permeables or impermeable surfaces, maybe they could take some of those pavers that are down near the lake and remove them and actually create some lawn area or something that's more permeable than that. But reconfiguring the driveway would be another more, maybe more productive way to do it, or maybe a combination of the two. So if you go back to the other photographs, you can see some of these trees that Justin was talking about in the existing.
Sarah Linda, that also gets back to the discussion that we had last month too, and especially take advantage of having a town board member with us. You know, maybe there needs to be some discussion relative to the lot coverage of the lakeside when a lot is split by, for instance, County Road 16. You know, and it's certainly they're taking advantage of the full lot to be in compliance with the lot coverage or not with the proposed additions, but yeah.
Yeah, the hardscape is concentrated there. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's something I had not, that's, you know, learning every step of the way. That's surprising that you have that there are two separate calculations when they're both just as vital, and especially the one down towards the lake. So that might be something else worth looking at down the road. Add that to Gary's list of things to look at.
Yes.
Yeah, I think if we're going to at some point discuss, you know, offsetting for permeable pavers and whatnot for coverages, I mean, I think on the flip side of that would be possibly areas like this where it counts a little bit more against the lot coverage when you have such a heavily developed lakefront. Maybe, yeah. I don't, you know, as part of the discussion.
So on the left here, you can see these evergreen trees that Justin mentioned that are going to have to come out, and you can kind of visualize, because the bank close to the road is quite steep, there's going to have to be some pretty major regrading there to get a new driveway up around the south side of the house.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
And a pretty massive retaining wall up at the top also.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's for holding the bank really. Yeah.
Yeah, and when they do, I guess, take out the other driveway, I would guess that they would try to restore that to lawn or something. But there are some trees that are very close to that too that could be damaged when they start doing their work and how they utilize that driveway for the construction process. Yeah.
Justin mentioned it, but let me just jump back to the site plan here for a quick second. I just want to show you something. I just saw this when Justin was mentioning this. Here's a new catch basin here with it piped up to this catch basin. This is a catch basin here that comes through the stormwater infiltration system. This is all drainage catching the runoff from the roofs, from the rain gutters, all the way around here, coming over here, coming through here, as well as you have all the stormwater that's going to come down this swale. And look, every single part of it's going to go into this one catch basin. Mm-hmm. All the stormwater for the entire site is going to go into that catch basin next to the road. And I think that's Justin, what you were saying, right? The concern about the overwhelming that.
Yeah, because
it seems like
it's only designed for a 25-year storm event, which to me seems, you know, not enough. But then you team that with the new driveway, and if you're having a good sized storm event, those permeable pavers are going to end up becoming a runway for that water to get down there. And then whatever overflow you have from that point north of that will just continue to flow down there and hit the water that's coming out of the driveway. And, you know, that was my concern. I didn't find anything else in there plan wise of how they were going to deal with that, other than they showed some riprap around that area or whatnot of where it was piping out of a 6-inch pipe.
What would be their options?
What was that? Sorry.
I was wondering what kind of options would they have to mitigate against the excessive drainage from these 25-year events that are occurring more frequently?
I guess they could install a larger infiltration system or tanks, have multiple points where it would outlet, you know, separate the house from the actual property possibly. Those swales.
Dry wells.
Yeah, they have champions in there and stuff, but you know, if those fail or they get overwhelmed, I mean, then you're going to have more severe flooding. Yeah, or rain gardens or just other stuff to sink it, basically.
Mhm. Yeah.
I think we may very well hear from the county public works people about this, because since it's their road, they're going to be concerned about overflowing and you know, a washout on Westlake Road running across.
Mhm.
So I hope they give it a careful review along with the town engineer.
Mhm. Yeah, because that is turning into a point source discharge there, if you're concentrating all that.
So does anybody have any other comments on that? I mean, a summarized recommendation would be to look at where the one location for the wastewater and see where they can recommend either reconfiguring the driveway or what they can do to get under that 25%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Justin, do you want to reword your recommendation to add that extra point?
Yeah.
about
Yep.
runoff?
Okay, any other comments on that one? Thank you, Justin.
Mhm.
All right. Motion to approve comments regarding 4210 County Road 16.
I'll move to approve the comments.
I'll second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, motion carries. So the proposals are approved. All right, now we're moving on to old business. We have the ECB page for the town newsletter for February, March, and April. Looks like that's you, Patty. Do you have any information on that?
Oh, well, let's see. Edith just supplied us with our topic for
Tree
this
planting,
month,
yeah.
trees. That was very good.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to figure out a way to compile solid waste recycling. I thought I just got a newsletter that came in. I don't know if you folks get the DEC newsletters. You probably do. But one just came in today about solid waste recycling. And a little earlier in the meeting was mentioned that perhaps Caitlin would have information in that department.
Yeah,
I would just like to get a few articles and maybe compile a few things to put that article together from a few different sources.
yeah, and she would have information as far as what we're doing right now.
Yeah, I will contact her.
Yeah, I know she will be putting together some information for the March 15th board meeting.
Okay.
So this might be a good time to have, you know, catch her right when she's got that in a good spot.
Right, right. And I did think of another topic. I was thinking about honeybees today. I don't know why. I think it was spring coming and flowers and the first flowers that bloom and the pollen and the bees and all that good stuff. And I know we do have local, now what is a beekeeper called? What's the proper term for a beekeeper?
Apiarist, I don't know.
What it is?
Apiarist, yes.
Edith knows that. So I thought maybe an article about local, you know, honey and bees and the tolerance.
Like, yeah, sure.
Pollution, all these things that affect the bees and affect our local supply. And maybe that would be of interest to people. What do you all think
something about
that?
pollinator gardens would be good,
Yeah.
you know.
Pollinating gardens, yeah.
Pollinator, yes, because
Pollinative.
bees and butterflies. Actually, there's a lot of
Sorry about that.
yes. it would be fun to do something about the native bees, not particularly honeybees, but the native ones that nobody notices and do a tremendous job of pollinating. They are mason bees and leafcutter bees, and they don't sting, neither do they make honey, but they are great little workhorses for pollination.
Pollination,
You know,
yeah.
so
I like that
there-
idea.
yes, there's a lot of interest in that. I have a couple of native bee houses that I hang out by my garden and for pollination services. So those would be something we could promote and bring people's attention to also, you know, whatever.
That might even be nice for your exhibit, Edith.
Okay, well, I can do something like that. I'll, let's see, that would be June. If we have March is covered, April is covered.
April, I have to get in by
Sarah
toward the end
Linda's
of
doing
March.
something in May.
Birding,
for
Sarah
birding.
Linda, May, are you still good with that?
I can do that, sure.
Okay, so
Okay.
then we'll go on to Pollinative Gardens. How about that?
Pollinator Gardens on in June.
In
Okay,
June.
that'll be fine.
And then the next, Rocky, think of some things that are of interest to you that might be of something different in a newsletter that maybe we haven't touched upon yet.
All right.
Put your thinking cap on for July.
For July? All right.
Yeah, yeah. You could even get a little legal with it, I suppose. Right?
We'll see.
Okay, well, there's a lot of time. You can think about it for a bit.
That's right. There's a little time there. So we'll throw together we'll get together the solid waste article, and I'll get with Caitlin and pick her brain and see what she might be able to send our way. And if anyone else comes upon anything of interest in that department, can send it to me or copy us all in on it. That'd be great.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Thank you all.
And thanks for volunteering for that one, Rocky.
Yes.
No problem.
Okay.
All
Well,
right, town hall displays.
All right, so it is time to change this out and have the spring one. And I think, Rocky, didn't you say you could probably get some kid tree things?
Yes, I did talk about that with my mom, and she said she'd love to propose it to her class. She has a bunch of people that live in the town anyway, and they would
Yes.
love to get involved.
All
So
right.
that's 100% a possibility.
Great. Well, if you can ask her to have them do something this week or next, then you and I can get together and change out that exhibit and put up the kids' work. I would like to put up their pictures of what they do, and we'll put up something about what trees do, you know, habitat, blooms, et cetera, et cetera. I am going to be out of town this week, so I can't do it this week, which I wanted to do, but my brother died in Kansas and I have to go place for his funeral, so I'm going to be gone this week.
So sorry, Edith.
Well, yeah, I am too. I mean, he's at least 10 years younger than I am, and 30 years younger than my parents were when they died. It was quite a shock.
Wow.
He hadn't been ill very long. Well, thank you. But after I get back, which should be Friday next week, then possibly I'll get in touch, Rocky, and we'll talk about when we can go put something up. Okay.
Yeah, that sounds good. I'll have my mom propose it this week. I think
Okay.
they're on break, so.
Okay, well, you know, something large, if she's having them draw or paint or
do you know
whatever.
the dimensions by chance, so I can just give her like a rough estimate?
Well, what I think would work well is if she would have them do something on ledger size paper, and we'll put them up, possibly change them out every couple of weeks. So if whoever wants to put up something would have it on display for a while. You know,
Okay.
we don't have to just go by 2 or 3 months. Let's plan to show everybody's work. And we'll have to open it up and change them out a little bit. But my thought was just to have a background, you know, which is what's there now, and put up their work. The only thing that's tricky is if we want the kids to put their last name with it, whether they want to identify themselves as the artist, or if they want just their first name on it, on the front, and their last name on the back. I don't know what the protocols are for school kid work anymore, so you might want to clear that with her.
Yeah, I'd suggest first name. She probably knows first. I'd
She'll
suggest
know,
first
yeah.
name, last initial.
Mhm.
Yeah. So anyway, we can, I think probably the display would take about 6 or 8 ledger sized pictures at a time.
I think the size is about 4 feet by 4 feet, give or take.
Yeah, it is.
approximately.
It's just a little, it's, you know, so we'll just put them up and try
the
to
other thing
return them to them in good condition when we get through.
The other thing, if you wanted to do with that, or even Rocky, if she wanted to do in the classroom, taking photos, I don't know if they want to do that or not, of doing that. We have the digital display also, which is just a rotating PowerPoint presentation. So we could always insert that also in the town hall, in the foyer. And then include any video or whatever, obviously a link, YouTube video, whatever, from the town website or the ECB page, either one. So there's a couple of different options there for you.
Excellent.
Cool.
Okay, well, I'll try to be in touch when I get back and I have my head on straight again.
Okay, well, safe travels and good
Thank
luck
you.
with good luck with everything.
Thank you. It's
Yep. Not things you expect.
no, it was he'd been ill for 2 weeks.
That's tough.
Stunning.
This makes you appreciate all the times that you have.
Yes.
Yep. All right. So thank you for sharing that, and thanks everybody for putting your time into that, into those displays. All right, vacancies. I'm supposing we can move on from that and skip over that one for right now, because we're still, wait, that first one. We'll need to delete that one or something. Is that a mistype? I feel like something happened with that like 3 or 4 hours ago, but I don't really remember. So we can just keep it on there. And then we'll probably put off another till the next meeting till we talk more and we have more of our structure set up for the other positions. Any new business?
I had a couple things to mention. Maybe everybody else got these same emails, but there are 2 volunteer opportunities that have to do with dealing with invasives. One of them has to do with the gypsy moth infestation. The Watershed Association sent around a flyer about 3 different sessions they're having called Scout and Scrape, which is they're organizing 2-hour sessions at 3 places and getting people to come and scrape off gypsy moth egg cases. Find them and scrape them off. So one is at Bear Hill, one is at Ontario County Park, and one is at Stid Hill. So the Stid Hill one might be in the town, but probably not. But anyway, that might be something that we would want to put a flyer about. Well, actually, the Watershed Association probably will put that into our newsletter, I'm guessing. But anyway, that's something, if any people are interested in doing it. They're all in April 17th, 23rd, and then the last one is May 1st. The other one is about the spotted lanternfly. I did listen to the webinar that the state agency that's in charge of the spotted lanternfly put together. And what they're trying to do is develop a core of volunteers who are willing to take on one kilometer square zone and agree to visit it and survey for spotted lanternfly and also for ailanthus trees and report back on what they have found. And they want, they've got this complicated website in which you can go in. They have some grid squares that they are particularly interested in finding a volunteer to take that one on. So you can go and look for those, or you can just pick any square that you happen to want. If you want to do it around your own house, or you want to do a place where you would like to hike anyway, or that sort of thing. I was not able to sign up for it. I mean, their webinar said this is all very easy, but it wasn't all very
It was not, was it?
easy.
Yeah, I tried to and I couldn't get through it.
Yeah, but it is something that is, you know, if there are people that are concerned about this, and a lot of people should be concerned about this, certainly people in farming and people who like the woods and whatever, this is a volunteer opportunity that once they get it working, I think people ought to be aware of. So maybe we could put something in the newsletter about that, April or May, not a whole article, but something, you know, just sort of to highlight that opportunity that people might have to volunteer their time.
It would be good if somebody, I'm going to suggest to the tree board that we monitor Sand Hill Cemetery, because that is town property and it has all kinds of ailanthus trees. The whole west border of that property is just covered with these trees, and they do attract the spotted lanternflies. They are a preferred host, and they really ought to be taken out of there if we can, because it is on farm, you know, it's across the road from farms and from residences that have blueberry bushes and things like that that would be decimated by the spotted lanternflies. And since it's town responsibility, I think we really ought to be taking a look at it. It's when we did
if I could just, oh, sorry, Edith. I was just
No,
going
I
to
was
say,
just gonna-
we had previously talked about trees in some of the cemeteries. I know the tree team also had marked a number of trees. I did, just as a follow-up, I did have a conversation with Jim Fletcher yesterday. They're just waiting for at this point, the ground is too soft. They're afraid of tearing up the cemeteries. So they just need it to dry out a little bit or freeze, whichever, so that they can get in to take out those trees. But they've all been marked and everything's ready to go.
Have they marked the ailanthus trees? I haven't been over on Emerson Road for a while.
I
They
don't
really,
believe those trees have been marked. I don't believe
yeah,
so.
I've seen some marked on the ones on New Michigan, and I see that they're ready to take those out, and that's good because they are endangering some power lines. But the ailanthus trees are just waiting for the lanternflies to show up. I'm afraid that's a really bad place for them.
Well, I recommend this webinar, and we might want to consider putting it on the ECB webpage, even if it's only for our own purposes in, you know, meeting some of our training 4-hour requirements. Requirements in Rocky's case.
I listened to it, and maybe because I listened to it later, I was able to log in and create an account. So it is kind of a cool thing. This IMAP invasives where you take a picture and then it through GPS actually targets where you were, and then it can be uploaded. So I think it is something we should get involved with and plot out some grids throughout the town to keep tabs on things.
One of our grids.
I think learning how to use IMAP invasives would be a great subject for a program that could be entirely a Zoom meeting. You know, there might easily be 20 or 30 people around the town who would show up for something like that, and we could explain the whole IMAP invasives and what it does, and with spotted lanternfly, but other things too. And maybe get a bunch of volunteers looking.
Mhm.
I'd be happy to take the lead on that.
Good.
That'd be great. And that's something too that we can record, that record it and then it's up there.
Mhm.
All right. Any reports from the CIC? History team.
The history team is working on a walking or riding or driving tour of historic sites along Westlake Road. Not sure if that's when that's going to materialize, but we've got a few partners who know what they're doing and how to produce such a thing. So that may be coming down the road.
Excellent. Tree board.
Nothing at this point. We do have a meeting scheduled, but one of the things that they were asking the ECB members to do was to recommend species of trees that they would like to see planted in some town property. What your particular favorite trees might be and where you might like to see them. So if you have suggestions, send them to me or to Dennis Brewer, and that would be very helpful.
All right, so pick your favorite tree.
Yes,
Great.
and think about, think about how they, what their benefits might be, and tell us about it.
That's awesome.
Are there particular parks where you're looking to do new planting?
Yes, there are some places where we were thinking about, certainly Blue Heron Park, and there has been a lot of tree death in Outhouse Park. There are places that we really think we'd like to put some more tree cover in.
On for that one. And then finally, anything from the conservation easement team?
Just real quick, that team has been on a little bit of a hiatus. Barbara Johnson from Labella had some personal issues that she needed to focus her time on, but she's back now. So that actually will get up and going here relatively soon, and specifically the recommendations I think is moving forward with that, but also some really cool news to share hot off the press. Today the Stryker Farm PDR closed today. So the ECB is very been involved with those PDR, purchase and development rate applications over the years, and the Stryker Farm that closed today. So that was fantastic news.
That's excellent news.
Yeah, great news.
Good.
Great.
All right, and then future training. I don't know, I've sat in on a few of these. I don't know if any of you have, and they've got some interesting stuff in them. They're easy to jump in, and they're short and sweet, and you can pick up a couple good things on them. So third Thursday, I want to say, third Thursday of the month for the rest of the year.
Yes.
All right, does anybody else have anything to bring up for the good of the order? To questions, comments? I think Doug looks like the happiest person here, because now he's like,
I was just getting ready to say thank you, Mr. Chairman, with a little extra.
Yes,
so.
I think all of us thank you.
get that off the list.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, well, thank you everybody for your time and for welcoming me aboard, and thank you for those of you who are visiting us today, and look forward to continuing to work with you. And again, if there's anything that you need from me, reach out. I'm available if you have any questions or thoughts or things that you'd like to see me do, or that you'd like to see us do. Don't hesitate to reach out to me. And John, thank you for your time. And I'm coming in, and it's like you're just trying to get away from me. So, we'll run into you sometime.
Not too far away.
No, I'll walk. You know, I'll get on the bike when it's not 10 degrees and I'll ride over sometime. All right.
We're really going to miss you, John.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you for all your good work. You're great.
Thank you, John.
So he'll focus on helping other groups, other boards for a while. And, you know, again, Kimberly, look forward to working with you. And thanks again for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Jared.
What's that?
I just want to say thank you to you and Doug and to John, who sent me the contact information. It was very interesting sitting in and hearing all that you're working on. And I heard a lot of things that are near and dear to my heart, especially from Edith, because I'm kind of a tree nut. All those.
Oh, good.
Perfect. Well, thanks, Leif. All right. With that said, it is 6:16. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
Oh, yes.
I don't think that's one of the choices. Oh, yes. I didn't hear a second, so we're still here.
I'll second that.
All right. All in favor?
Bye.
Aye.
All right. Well, thanks, everybody. And have a great rest of your evening.
Thank you all.
And
Good night.
Doug, I'll reach out and we can figure out nuts and bolts later on. Probably let's talk after Monday. Let's not do anything until after Monday.
100% agree. So.